So it's great honor for me to lead and to facilitate this particular panel, and the topic most fascinates me. It's about the anti-discrimination mechanism, how this mechanism is working in Hungary and in Moldova. And we have 3 speakers. 2 of them is working in such an anti-discrimination institution, equality institution, and the one is an attorney who brings the cases, to this anti-discrimination mechanism. And I urge the speakers to talk about the particular cases on discrimination of ethnic and religious minorities. I prefer to hear such landmark cases, and how would you encourage religious and ethnic minorities to litigate and to use this mechanism. And our next guest is the member of the equality body of Moldova, Andrei BRIGHIDIN, if I correctly pronounce your family name, and he will speak about functioning of anti-discrimination mechanism in Moldova. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this event to speak about our experience in Moldova. In my chapter, try to cover, to provide the answers to 4 questions. The first would be whether Moldova has a comprehensive anti-discrimination framework and mechanism. The second would be whether this mechanism is reaching out to the ethnic and other minorities. The third point, whether the country is moving towards advancing the inclusion of ethnic minorities, and legislation. And the fourth one would be whether the ethnic minorities in my country are using the non-discrimination framework. So to first, the Moldovan anti-discrimination, Now? Shall I start from the very beginning?
No.
Thank you. So the anti-discrimination law in Moldova was adopted in 2012 following a very long advocacy process whereby civil society organizations have been actively involved. It is true that there was a certain influence of the Council of Europe, European Union, and especially the incentives provided by the visa liberalization process. Altogether, this bottom-up and top-down pressure led to the adoption of the law on ensuring equality. The law in Moldova covers an indicative set of protected grounds, including race, ethnicity, color, nationality, religion and faith, as well as sexual orientation in Article 7 on discrimination in employment. Like in the other examples that were mentioned here, the law provides for the shifting of the burden of proof, provided that the presumption of discrimination was established by the anti-discrimination mechanism. The law establishes the now it Thank you. The law, now it's much better. The law establishes the Council for Preventing and Combating Discrimination and Ensuring Equality, which is a collegial, quasi-judicial body with the competence to prevent and fight discrimination in the political, economical, social, cultural, and other areas of life. The law has three special provisions, namely discrimination in the area of education, discrimination in access to goods and services, to public goods and services, and discrimination in the area of employment, with corresponding contravention components in the Contravention Code of the Republic of Moldova and respective sanctions. So the Council did its work in August, pursuant to the appointment by the Parliament of the 5 members of the Council, and I'm honored to be one of these members. So the members of the Council, 4 out of 5 work on volunteer basis. The chair is a permanent member. The Council has 20 employees in the administrative apparatus, and the Council has the following attributions. First, examining complaints from the victims of discrimination. Second, examining compliance of the legislation and providing recommendations to national authorities in order to advance the principle of equality and non-discrimination. Third, raising awareness and empowering individuals to submit complaints, and not the least, fourth, to prevent discrimination through various trainings and educational activities. Since the establishment, the Council received over 300 complaints and issued more than 140 decisions finding discrimination in more than half of these decisions. In short, the challenges that are faced by the Council, the first, as my colleague mentioned earlier, is it's good that we have a Council that can document cases of discrimination and send those cases to court and recommend sanctions, but ultimately it's up to the court to apply the sanction. We and civil society's opinion is that the Council should have the power to apply sanctions, like in many other countries, Romania and so forth. The Council still needs to have more investigative powers, and one of the challenges, another challenge that we are facing is the challenge of being stuck in the region, being perceived as a country that is outside the European Union. Once you are not a member or a candidate of the EU, you cannot become a member of the ECUNET. In the current circumstances in Moldova, I mean the lack of political will to advance reform of the justice sector, divided society, lack of political instability, and hence the risk of taking some measures which are not in compliance with the equality and non-discrimination principle. We need to be part of this network, and we are frustrated because so far the answer that we received from ECUNET was that you cannot, in the current geopolitical, the current situation, if you are coming from such a country. So I see that another barrier that prevents us to fully to work, exchange information, and advance in the process of promoting equality and non-discrimination.
You've got time.
Thanks. So
4 minutes.
Second, how is the Council approaching ethnic groups? We understood from the establishment that we don't have enough capacity to reach out if we will not join efforts with NGOs, and this is how we reached out to ethnic minorities. we approached the council that is active by the Bureau of Interethnic Relations, approached also the development partners, and initiated a collaboration whereby any activities that will be done in partnership, in collaboration with the NGOs, they will invite members of the council where we will speak about the mechanism, about the possibility of submitting complaints, and we managed to establish a fruitful collaboration, and even they had a study visit to the council where they had the opportunity to see how we do the hearings, how we provide opportunities to all the parties, and so forth. Recent developments, my colleague mentioned the Roma Action Plan, which has specific shortcomings in light of the time shortages. I will not go deep into how this document, how this policy is being implemented. I will mention that Moldova is currently in process of adopting a new strategy on the inclusion of ethnic minorities, which is a paradigm, tends to be a paradigm shift from dancing, singing, and food and drinking to proper inclusion. The question, fundamental question, is how they will ensure, how the government will ensure genuine participation of the civil society. And we were consulted as the equality body. Our main recommendations was to include proper training for civil servants as to what the principle of equality and non-discrimination entails, to amend the legislation on preventing and fighting hate crimes in Moldova in compliance with the international human rights standards, not the least to adopt the European, to ratify the Charter on Regional and Minority Languages. The last question, and I still believe I have 2 minutes, is whether ethnic minorities in Moldova have access and are using the mechanism, the anti-discrimination mechanism. I will leave it up to you to judge. We need to go into the case law of the Council in order to find the answer to this question. I'll mention that we had to date had 10 decisions on finding discrimination on the ground of language. Out of these 10, 7 decisions. In 7 decisions, the Council found discrimination against Russian speakers, because in my country we have to distinguish between ethnic minorities and linguistic minorities. There is a presumption that, and it's still enforced, that ethnic minorities, all of them speak the Russian language. So far, in light of the legislation in force, and the Council stated that clearly the Russian language benefits, enjoys the status of language of inter-ethnic communication, and the courts, when deciding not to start the lawsuits that were initiated in Russian, discriminated against Russian speakers. But we also have cases when Romanian speakers were discriminated on the ground of nationality and on the ground of language, especially in some regions that most compactly populated by Russian-speaking population. We also had a number of cases on racial profiling concerning Roma, and Roma is one of the most discriminated ethnic groups in my country. In one case, a Roma woman was apprehended by police only because of her color. During the hearing, the Council found that she was apprehended pursuant to an orientation received by police that included the following elements: woman, dark color, Russian speaker, possibly pregnant. So she had only the dark color. The other orientation aspects that were mentioned did not meet the orientation. So obviously it was racial profiling. It was a case of discrimination found by the Council. In another case, 2 Nigerian students, while taking the flight to Krakow, Poland, were apprehended by the frontier police because of suspicions concerning the legality of the visa. In this case, instead of calling their the embassy which issued the visa, they called this the institution where the students were studying. In addition, they asked from the two Nigerian students immediately to provide proof that from the Polish embassy that their visa is valid. You know, so the council found that yes, it was a legitimate aim that the frontier police was pursuing in order to check, but they could immediately call. So the measures that they've done were definitely disproportionate, and consequently, the plaintiffs did not have the opportunity to fly and lost the tickets, which costed over 300 euros, for example. In all these cases that I mentioned, we issued corresponding recommendations. The last but not the least, there were also other cases of discrimination against, on the ground of ethnicity, against Roma community in access to services, and due to shortage of time, I will not go into that. I'll just mention that the Council is exercising all due diligence procedures to monitor implementation of the case, and if the recommendation of the Council are not implemented, the Council has the possibility to fill the minutes of administrative contravention. We have another contraventional component in the Code of Administrative Contravention, and submit it to the court. Therefore, we believe that Moldova has a quite advanced mechanism, but there is significant room for improvement. Thank you very much for your patience.
I think this is the moment when we can go back to your question, that how the ideal equality body would look like, but this is not, or the fully competent equality body would look like. But this is not what I wanted to ask. I leave this question to you. What I wanted to add that I read a study done by RU. It's a Roma information, Brussels-based Roma information organization, and they made a study of the use of the equality bodies in Europe by Roma communities, and they found 5 main obstacles of Roma using the equality bodies, and I would like to shortlist it quickly, and I would like to know your opinion. First, they said it's underreporting. This is the main obstacle or challenge, and the lack of informal hearings and exchange with Roma communities, and too much procedure, and not having various levels of response and procedures for different people or different diverse communities. The second is the lack of awareness of rights. There is a lot of data and example that, for example, 25% of the respondents were aware of the existence of the anti-discrimination law as such, and there are millions of examples of people being asked that, do you think there is discrimination, saying that no, but of course we don't want Roma as an employee of the company. So not being even aware of the fact what is discrimination. The third is lack of trust. So they were said that basically they don't trust the state authorities and institutions as such. So the question how the equality body can address this lack of trust, and then funding of the equality bodies resources, and the lack of equality data. Thank you.
Regarding the first question, how would the first part of your question, how would the ideal equality body look? In our opinion, it should be an equality body that can apply sanctions for all forms of discrimination. As I mentioned, in Moldova, we can apply only in the 3 areas. So we need to amend the legislation in order to have a powerful equality body that will be able to prevent, but also to combat with proper sanctions. It should have proper investigative powers. It should be properly resourced from a financial point of view. The nomination and appointment of the members of the equality body should be transparent, and in other words, there should be functional independence of the equality bodies, and the related legislation should be amended so as to ensure that other actors are also held responsible for promoting the principle of equality and non-discrimination. With regard to the obstacles that you mentioned, they are valid also for other vulnerable groups in my country, at least, and we are conscious about that, and therefore we are working with the media. We are working, I mean the regional media, because according to the opinion polls in Moldova, people tend to trust more their local TV stations that will reflect their issues. So we work with Canal Regional, that is a network of 15 TV stations, and our added value here is that there are 5 members of the council, and we can be theoretically simultaneously present in more than one broadcast, and so far this is working. We have ads at the local radios, and we have also caravan programs in order to reach out. Obviously, there is room for more, but this is all contingent on the availability of resources.